Welcome to Animal Justice Academy Lunchtime Live. I'm Kimberly Carroll. I am the AJA director, and our theme today is training in corporate pressure campaigns. And we've got joining us our new corporate campaigns manager at Animal Justice, Duda Nedeff. Welcome, Duda. Yay.
Hello.
And Duda.
Very happy to be here.
So I'm so glad to have you here. And I just want to say welcome to all of you lovely beings who have joined us here live, and welcome to those of you who are watching the replay. We love that you come and join us after the fact, because a lot of you can't make it at lunchtime. So Duda, I want to give just a quick little bio on you, and then we're going to let you take it away. Duda's going to do an actual training with slides and everything, and then and I'll interject a little bit, and then I'll also take some questions from you folks as to what you want to hear more about. So Duda holds a bachelor's degree in marketing from the University of Itajaí? Jaí, that's it, Valley in Brazil, and also completed a postgraduate certificate in sport and event marketing from George Brown College in Canada. For over 6 years, Duda has worked in the marketing sector before transitioning to animal protection movement in 2016. Her focus has been on developing and managing campaigns, corporate engagement, and strategies to advance animal welfare policies. She's successfully influenced leading companies globally, including McDonald's, Burger King, Krispy Kreme, Minor International, Carrefour, and Dunkin' Donuts. Duda, I mean, you've already been with Animal Justice for a few months now, so I keep saying new. You're new to the Animal Justice Academy because we haven't been able to have, orchestrate you on here yet, but she's already fully a member of our team, and it's so good to have you here, Duda. And we haven't killed you yet at Animal Justice, so that's good.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kimberly. It's great to be here. So very briefly, I am from Brazil. That's why my university was hard to pronounce. I moved from Brazil to Canada last year with my 2 cats. Someone said they are on the screen, they are on the back. They may show up here, who knows? So this is Kawa and Jingo. We came from Brazil last year to Canada. I joined Animal Justice beginning of this year. Being very happy here, very excited to be working with this amazing team. And I just included some pictures of me on sanctuaries here. So nice pictures. And let's go. So before we talk more about campaign strategies and tactics, I want to go over why we do corporate campaigns. And corporate campaigns can have different approaches and different goals. But a few things that we can get with corporate campaigns is a lot of change that will impact a large number of animals. So companies have a huge buying power and influence. So one single change in a company can impact a number of animals and influence the whole industry to make a change. For example, if you go to Loblaw's website, they say they are one of the biggest buyers and sellers of meat, chicken, eggs, and dairy in Canada. So if they make a change, it will impact the whole industry. Companies are very concerned about their brand. So when they don't want to have negative messages around them or any connection with animal abuse. So a lot of the times they will try to do something to stop the campaigns and act on it. Brands are also, they do a lot of reports around sustainability and ESG issues. And animal welfare recently has been a topic on this report. So they are making this more important. They're talking about their progress. So we can also put pressure on them to act on those commitments.
Yes, we've talked a lot, Duda, about the whole idea of ESGA. We need an A added to the end of ESG. So it's really good to hear that that's actually happening in the boardrooms.
Yes. Oops. Okay. So one of the our focus at Animal Justice on corporate campaigns, we are focusing on cages and the egg industry. And again, we are focused on this right now because the number of animals that we can impact with these policies is huge. And we can really reduce the suffering of these animals in a big way. These campaigns are focusing on ending the worst practices in the industry right now. And when we look globally, there are about 5 billion hens farmed industrially, and over 4 billion are in cages. So that number is huge. In Canada, there are 34 million hens in the egg industry, and also over 82% are in cages. So a lot of groups and a lot of people are working to get rid of these cages, which will make a big difference to animals. And to date, almost 2,500 major companies globally have announced commitments to go cage-free and ban these cages in their supply chain. And OWA, which is the Open Wing Alliance, it's an alliance we are part of, and more than 90 groups around the world. They made a report last year or beginning of this year that says that 89% of the cage-free egg commitments that had a deadline by 2022 have been fulfilled. The challenge now is that a lot of the commitments are by 2025, and we have to work very hard to get a lot of those companies to also make progress. And here are some pictures of how the egg industry is currently. And I didn't want to bring a lot of very graphic images, so these are very okay images showing just the reality of cages. These three images are from We Animals. They show battery cages, which is the majority of cages in Canada. And they show how cramped these hens are. Like, they don't have space to walk around. They cannot even open the wings most of the times. They walk on wire all the time. So they also get injuries from these. It's very frustrating for them. It causes a lot of suffering. And that's the whole thing they see in the very shortened lives. And if you can see the bottom picture, a hen, they lose a lot of the feathers on this, and they also get very bored and stressed, and sometimes they peck on each other. So they also cause this feather loss in a lot of them. And when you see some images are a lot worse than these ones are okay. The picture on the top is actually from a company that sells these cages. So this is a picture to say like how good the system is, and here is how you can get these cages. The pictures are very, like, everything is very clean, of course, but that's just the reality. Like, the cages, hens are just in cages inside barns, and they don't get out of there ever.
Yeah, so these are kind of, those pictures are like the best of the best,
Yeah.
really. And that's pretty horrific.
Yes. And then why did Animal Justice decided to do this work? So in Canada, most of the large companies, they have cage-free commitments already. But a lot of them are dropping these commitments or saying they cannot meet their deadlines. So now we really want to work on accountability and making sure these companies are moving towards cage-free. Another thing happening in Canada that is not happening in a lot of places, Canada is just walking backwards, is that we are moving to enriched cages instead of going cage-free. So on these pictures, this is battery cages, which is like a hen has a space of a small piece of paper. They don't have any enrichments or anything that resembles a natural life for them. And actually, this one is an enriched cage. So as you can see, we can barely see any difference. They have a few perches in there. They have some scratching pads. It's horrible. Like, it's very hard to see the difference. They're just making the cages a little bigger, but they're still keeping the sensitive animals in cruel cages. And this is a graphic from the egg producers in Canada. And if you see, they don't even say cages, which is very funny. They say conventional housing. This is battery cages. And you see that this has been declining over time. However, most of that decline is just going through enriched colonies, which are the enriched cages. And it's funny because on cartoons, the egg cartoons as well, they say enriched colony, which some people may think that's actually good, but that's just enriched cages. So just a bigger cage, basically. When we look at aviary and free run, that's cage free. So on these ones, the hen there is a big barn. They can walk around the barn. There are different perches, so they can have hierarchies between them. There are litter on the floor, so they can dust bathe. There's a lot more things that they can do that resembles normal behaviors. And when we go to free range, they also have outdoor access. So that's even better. In Canada, it's hard during some part of the year, but free range, they would have outdoor access. And organic, it depends on the country, but in Canada, organic also has outdoor access, and then some other requirements related to feed.
And I think it's important for us to say, Duda, that we, at Animal Justice, we're not saying that any of these are good. Obviously, we don't believe animals should be used for food. But it comes to a degree of getting rid of the most egregious forms of torture that these animals are experiencing. So I think that's important for us to put forward.
Exactly. When we say cage free, that's not equal to cruelty free. All these systems have problems, and all of them will kill the hens when they reach about 2 years of age because they start producing less, so they're killed. So all of them have a lot of problems. One thing with going cage-free is a lot of studies show that for the hen, that makes a huge difference to just get out of the cages. So that's what we are trying to do while there's still animal production happening. So this is a medium-term strategy to really end these worst forms of suffering and things that really cause the animals to suffer a lot while they are in the systems. So going cage-free would reduce that suffering for billions of animals, and that's the reason we do these campaigns. In Canada, there are also other groups that are doing similar work. For example, Mercy for Animals released a Canada scorecard where they show all the companies that have commitments in Canada and the ones that are making progress or not. HSI is also another group that works with companies around the world and in Canada on this issue. What we thought a gap that we could fill in Canada is that not a lot of the groups are not doing campaigns. So we really wanted to come in and raise awareness about this issue and talk about how horrible cages are and how Canada is moving just to enriched cages. So we really want to raise awareness and also campaign against these companies and hold them accountable for their promises, because they need to change. The companies are the ones who have the power to make the industry change because they're the biggest buyers of these products.
Yeah, and Duda, maybe we could just talk a little bit about the landscape, because just so folks understand sort of what's been happening in the background over the last few years. So when I was one of the founders of Mercy for Animals Canada, along with Camille Lapchuk, and back then we were putting out some pretty groundbreaking undercover investigations. And that was forcing the grocers and the Retail Council of Canada and everything to make these pretty good commitments. MFA Canada ceased to be, and now that we've got MFA, our friends at MFA in the US that are doing some work here. But the undercover investigations stopped for a few years. And all of a sudden, all of these organizations that were saying we're going to do at the bare minimum of at least getting rid of cages or getting rid of gestation crates or whatever, all of a sudden sort of walking away from these and nobody noticing, or at least them hoping nobody was noticing. And so that's the biggest problem, is we didn't have anybody sort of biting at their heels saying, we're still watching you. In fact, we're doing investigations. And in fact, we're going to make it very uncomfortable for you if you don't at least adhere to the basics of the promises you've made. So that's just a little bit of background of why we came in, Animal Justice came in when we did, basically to play that role of biting at their heels, of being the real pain in their side.
Yeah, exactly. And we know that these campaigns really work, and we got a lot of companies to make changes after groups campaigned against them and really showed what they were still allowing on their supply chains. And I can talk more about this now that we're going to get into like how to run a campaign and some of the effective things we can do when we run campaigns. And I also want to point out that these tips and the points I'm going to bring are a lot of the things we're doing at AJA, but you can also do in any corporate pressure campaign, even if it's not for cage-free. Like you can use some of these strategies to ask a company to add a vegan menu, for example, or do other changes that are also going to impact animals. And here I'm going to get into how we chose our first company. So we are campaigning against Loblaws right now. And again, we want to look into the number of animals impacted. So like I mentioned, Loblaws is the biggest retailer in Canada. A policy from them will impact a huge number of animals and will impact the industry because suppliers will have to adapt. So when choosing a company, we look a lot on the number of animals impacted, but also in the influence that company can have. So sometimes even if a company doesn't use a lot of eggs or other products, they may influence a lot the other companies to follow their lead. So that's another point that we can look at when we're choosing a company. Also, the brand. A lot of companies are very sensitive about things that come out about their brand and the connections and animal abuse, for example. Some companies are less sensitive. So that's also a good thing that we can try to understand to see if a company, how much they would be bothered by a campaign. And the other thing is competition and consumers as well. So companies don't want to feel behind their competition. So if we say, like, this other brand is doing this, a lot of the companies will care about that, and they don't want to feel like behind their competitors. And also when consumers ask things, the brands will always listen because they are the ones buying things as well. And here I just brought something from Loblaw's website that goes along with what you were saying, Kimberly, about their commitment. So they made commitments in Canada to stop sourcing pigs from gestation crates, and also to stop sourcing eggs from hens confined in cages. This being, for the pigs, it's been 10 years, and for the hens, it's been 7 years. And they haven't done nearly enough. It's almost nothing. So this year on their reports, they say that their PC shell eggs, so their own brand, is cage-free. We have no idea what that means because they don't say what's the percentage of those inside their whole, like the all eggs they sell. So I have no idea how much that represents. They also say they converted 50% of their own brand of pigs to group housing. We also don't know what that means. So that's very funny because this doesn't provide any transparency on what they're doing, basically. And we think that that's not okay, and we need to really hold them accountable and have more information on how they're planning to reach those goals. Because the first one, it's passed and they haven't done pretty much anything as well. And just a reminder that we are very small compared to all these brands that we are going against and going after. However, we have a lot of information and we have a lot of people that have concerns about these issues. So it's just a reminder that we are winning. We are getting a lot of commitments and a lot of policies from a lot of huge companies and their budgets. Usually one of these companies has a budget bigger than all the animal groups combined. So we really want to be out there and see ourselves as a tiger and as like powerful, and we can get a lot of people together and really put pressure on these campaigns to make change, on these companies to make change. And here are some of the tactics we use. And here is where we want to talk more about things we can do, both for our work with animal justice and for everyone that is trying to do more corporate campaigns. And the first thing we do, we usually try to contact the company before, and we try to see if they reply. And this involves a lot of research, trying to find the right person, their executives, their email contacts. And there are a few tactics we can use to do that. So a lot of the companies, they do have the leadership on the website. So that's one way we can find some information. I like to look for press releases because you can see sometimes the sustainability director or the communications director's name, and sometimes even emails on those press releases. I also go through LinkedIn to find a lot of people. And there are a number of platforms out there where you can try to find emails. So one that I like to use is called Rocket Reach. Rocket Reach allows you to put the name of the person, the company, and it shows you their phone and their emails. And you can get a few free times you can use it per month, and then you can buy more if you want. But it gives, I think, you 5 emails per month for free. There is another website called hunter.io. It allows you to test these emails. So you can put an email there and it will tell you if that email is valid, if it's not valid. Some companies have some blocks, so you can see for some companies, but it helps a lot to see if an email is good. And then you can use some patterns. So if you see the company uses first name dot last name, you can just use that for a lot of the other names you find. And send emails. I also like to use tracking to see if the companies are opening my emails. So there are some free tracking online that you can use. I like to use HubSpot, which is a CRM. So it has more things. You can also have all your emails in there and more information about the company. They also have a free version that does a lot of these things, plus tracks email that anyone can use. And I also like to, sometimes I send a few emails to the leadership and I put everyone together on one email. And then later on, I send individual emails to these people. And when they're not replying, sometimes I go to their teams and to managers and to other levels of the company if I really want to talk to them. And sometimes for Loblaws, for example, we know they had so much time to do things and they haven't done anything. So sometimes we also don't put a lot of resources in trying to talk to them. We just let them know, and then we start a campaign because we know that's what we need at the moment. So it depends a lot on strategies.
Yeah, but great point, Duda, is that a lot of folks that are doing pressure campaigns, especially on a smaller level, don't even bother reaching out to them first, you know, so at least reach out. You never know, even the threat of something could get somebody to change their mind. So.
And if we think that we have a few resources and we don't want to, or we can't really have a lot of campaigns happening at the same time due to resources as well, if a company wants to talk to you or if they make progress without a campaign, that's always good because then you can use those resources to go to the next company and do campaigns on the ones that are not doing anything.
Yeah, the idea of you're the only one, that you're going to be the only one left doing this, you're going to look so bad. Yeah, it works as well as it did in kindergarten.
Yes. And here is one of the first things we did at Animal Justice when we started the Loblaws campaign. We created this page where people could go in and send emails to Loblaws leadership. So this explains the issue a little bit more. We want to have a page where people can go and see what we are talking about. And here they can send emails directly to Loblaws. And we have almost 10,000 people that took action since we launched this campaign.
That's wonderful.
Yes. And another option is also to start a petition. And there are a lot of websites that let you start petitions. This is from change.org. And this is a petition from the Open Wing Alliance on a campaign they just started recently on Jollibee. This is a global campaign. So change.org allows you to create petitions. You can include your text. And on this one, or on all of them, you can include some people at the company. So here you can see the CEO and president is one of the people that the petition is targeting. So change.org will send updates to this leadership and to the people you include here, telling how many people signed, how the campaign is going. So this is also good to get the leadership updated about how many people want them to make changes. And another cool thing about this one, and we haven't really done at Animal Justice yet, is that Open Wing Alliance likes to play with the logos of the companies. So we can usually do, I think there is something.
Oh, that's not you, Duda?
No.
Okay. Ina or Kirsten, somebody's drawing on our slide, if you can take care of that.
So another thing is like you can play with the logos of the companies, right? They changed it here, the face of Jollibee, they do some blood. So it shows that they're just being cruel. And there's also companies don't like this. And this is something that we need to pay attention just on the legal aspect, because some countries you can't really play with logos, but in Canada, it's usually okay. So this is something we can look more into when you do a campaign to really get the company to pay attention.
Duda, there's a little bit of discussion about just the efficacy of petitions and whether they really work. And because we do talk a lot in other forms like government, in legislative, that maybe petitions, unless they're government petitions, don't do a lot. But it's a very different ball game when we're dealing with corporate, isn't it? Like that's one of the reasons like why corporate work is so good, is because corporations are much more panicky when there's a petition out about them than say the government is.
Yeah, I do think it works a lot to show numbers. So this one, it just launched last week, this campaign, and it has 15,000 people signed. And it's a lot about what you do with these petitions as well. So we really want to send them to the executives to show that people just keep signing, they don't want you to do this. Some of these petitions from OWA, they get like 100,000 people signing. So you can really show the company that are people looking for improvements and looking out for them. Another cool thing that some groups do, I've done it once, we deliver these petitions in person on the company's headquarters. So you can bring a lot of like boxes, you can really make a huge protest around this. We once brought some of these petition signatures to Walmart in Brazil. And they invited us in because they want to talk to us. They didn't want us to protest outside, but it gets their attention. So numbers are very good to show them that we are like a lot of people that want this change. And I think it really works for companies to show this. Numbers are also very good on social media. So social media is something amazing that we can use. It's free. It's very quick to go to a company's website or social media page and make comments. I've seen a lot of companies that made commitments only after social media pressure. They really don't want a lot of their customers to see all these comments around there. So here is just, we did on Instagram and Facebook, some messages towards RCC and Loblaws. And we have a lot of comments from people that just went there and left their messages. And one thing about social media is that it's very easy for the company to just hide the comments or delete them. But even though it's still good because we are making them act on something. So we're taking the social media manager attention from his job to just go and delete comments. So that's also a good thing. And two things that work on social media or how to improve our comments is that it's always good when we can edit the comments. So for example, when we have campaigns, we usually have some examples of comments you can use. And sometimes even I just use the comment that I'm given because I'm busy or in a rush. But when we can make changes and edit the comments, that's amazing, because then you see a lot of original messages and it really sounds like this is working organically. And people are very concerned about this because they even wrote a message. So this makes a difference for the companies as well.
Yeah, we
And
talk
another,
about, oh, sorry, dude, I was just going to say, this is something that we have tried to really pound into our heads here in AJA is customize. Now, if you're going to take the time to send a form letter, change up the subtitle, the subject line, or if you're going to do a social media post, just add a few words that are your own. It makes all the difference in the world.
Exactly. And another thing that I like to do is also go back to the post and like everyone's comments. We can do that on almost every social media. And that also gets those comments to be more visible and adds more pressure to the company because they're getting noticed. So that's also something really cool to do when we do social media. And here, we can do other things on social media. We can target not only the company's pages, but the executives' pages. And that's something we did with Furbank. He's the new guy that is going to be the CEO and president of Loblaws. And what we did is we had an action to go on his LinkedIn post where he mentioned he's joining Loblaws. And we had a lot of people commenting about Loblaw's lack of commitment and asking if he would do anything about it. And it was really fun to see because he got a lot of positive comments, but then there was so many from us about their cage-free commitment. And there was a point where he closed his comment. So no one can comment anymore, but we see that he really noticed our messages. And it's really nice to have this approach, sometimes emailing directly the leadership team, the board of directors. and also reaching out to them on social media so they know about the campaign. And here is also just Twitter, and we can do replying to messages on Twitter or sending tweets. Tweets are, when you send a tweet, it's harder for the company they can't hide it. So whenever you post on your own social media, that's also good, because then the company cannot just delete the comments. Another tactic that I really like is doing Google reviews. So this one we can do in any businesses, even if it's small, if it's big, we can just find them on Google Maps and do a review. So we can do 1 star, we can add a comment. Sometimes the companies try to delete these comments as well, but it's really good to do this. And if it's a small company, sometimes, like if it's one location that doesn't have a lot of reviews, we can even get their stars rating to go down if we get a lot of people to make comments. And the location is not going to like it, right? Because if we're just going to Loblaws, the headquarters, they will have a whole team working on this. But if it's a smaller location or a franchisee, the owner will get very mad, and they will usually go to the headquarters and say, what's happening? You should do something, because I don't want people commenting on my page. So this is another very cool thing to do. And then we can also get outside of the social media and go to the streets. And we have done a few protests for Loblaws. We had one in front of their locations with 20 people. It was really good. It was a very, very busy area. So a lot of customers were walking by and talking to us. The manager actually called the police and asked us to leave, but the cops came, and basically we were on the sidewalk. It's public. We were not doing anything illegal, so we could just stay there. Then we did one outside of shareholders meeting. That was really cool as well. We spoke to a few shareholders. They were walking by, they saw some of them listened and said they would actually talk about this at the meeting. So it was a very productive protest as well. And we're thinking about more things we can do related to shareholders. And this one on the top was this week, we went to the RCC Awards Gala, and we did a protest there. This one was on a private place, so we couldn't stay much. They asked us to leave, but they really noticed us, and it was really good to get some attention while we were there.
And again, I was just going to say also, Duda, I think for corporate stuff, it doesn't require that many people. Again, just having some people placed, it really panics corporations, as opposed to you could have, 10,000 people out and the government's not going to blink an eye at a protest. So yeah, exactly. They don't want it. They don't want like a lot of negativity in front of their stores or headquarters. So it really makes an impact on the campaign to do these protests, and anyone could go and help do protests outside locations. It's powerful, and you can also give flyers out to people walking by. You can raise awareness about this issue to more people that have no idea about how hens are confined. We talked to a lot of people that never knew about this. So it's good to reach more people. And we also did a few cool things. So we did an article, we did an opinion piece on the Daily Hive. I wrote this article a few months ago, I think March. So we got a few messages about Loblaws out there. We did an ad. This was amazing. And I feel like a lot of the companies worry a lot about offline things and ads in general, because they know they cannot control this, and a lot of people will see. This ad was at The Grind. It's a magazine in Toronto. I sent an email to the leadership. It's very good to say what we're doing. So I sent an update to them showing we did this ad, and we have so many people commenting on social media, and I said a lot of prints about social media, and that led to Loblaws calling me. So we know that
the ads and just highlighting a lot of the comments made them do something and talk to us and try to say what they're doing, which is not enough. But they were trying to talk to us after this. And this was also really cool. We did this week. We had this truck with billboards and videos during the RCC Gala. And it was really cool to have this out there. The truck was just driving around. So we really got their attention.
And there was a video on the truck, folks, of video of birds in battery cages. So it was really compelling stuff. So this is what was driving around while all of these grocery titans were heading into their big gala to celebrate their wonderful work. That's what was greeting them.
Exactly. And I just want to finish with some new strategies like this. We are always looking for new things we can do and things that we can get their attention and escalate the campaign when the company is not acting. So one of the things that I've been talking over the last couple of days is that I'm really excited to do more testing with ChatGPT and try to brainstorm or try out new tactics we can do and using them just to help us finding new strategies and also brainstorming. And if I would love to hear if people have more thoughts on things we can do and things you have done before that we haven't. So I'm always open to discussing and thinking of new things we can do. And I would love to have more time to talk about that. And another thing, just to end my presentation, is that we have launched the Animal Action Team at Animal Justice. And we have a lot of people taking action on these corporate campaigns to really show our pressure and show how many people are involved. So I want to also just invite everyone to join, and you get emails from me every week and you can reply back and I get all those emails. So we can also have a direct line of contact where we can talk more about strategies and new action that we can take.
Mm-hmm. And Duda, maybe just explaining what happens when you're part of this animal action team is that you're getting 1 or 2 emails a week that are branded as the animal action team. Yeah, go ahead.
Exactly. It's usually 2 emails per week that we are sending now. And it's usually with a lot of these actions that I was showing. So commenting on social media, sending emails to the companies. It's usually very easy things that you can do wherever you are. So we try to make it easy for people to take action. And so we can keep adding pressure to these companies that really need to make change faster than they are right now.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Thank you, Duda. That was so helpful to be able to get, really down and dirty with some of those tactics. And you can tell folks Duda loves this stuff, right? She just gets this giddiness about her. And of course, there are all sorts of other tactics and strategies that can be used, but those are some really sort of foundational things, whether you are doing trying to get fur not carried by a store, whether you're trying to get your local restaurant to stop selling foie gras, whatever it is. So those were some really great tips, Duda. Now, there's some questions that came up, and folks, I know we're coming up to the 1 p.m. But if it's okay, we'll go a little bit later. Duda, can you give us a few extra minutes?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, good. And feel free, folks, to drop off as you need to, but I want to get some questions in here. Before we do that, though, I just want to talk about a little bit more about Loblaws, because if you are part of the action team, the Animal Justice Action Team, then we're going to be really focusing on Loblaws for the next bit. And I think it's important for you to know why Loblaws is so important. Loblaws is the biggest grocer. If we get them to, be able to make the commitment that or just go back on and keep their commitment, that pretty well guarantees all the other grocery chains will fall in line. So this is a huge one for that. It's also a huge one because we have to remember that corporations, they don't know a difference between animal welfare versus animal liberation. They just know when people are going after them around animal stuff, it is a big beacon to them that people care about animals, okay, and that they better watch what they are doing as far as animals go. That's as sort of complex as it gets for them, okay? So we need to know that even though we're sort of we have these differentiations about what's welfare, what's rights, they don't know. All they hear is animals. We care about animals, okay? So I think that's an important piece to have. Okay, let's get into some questions, Duda. Carrie is asking, is there a space requirement for outdoor access when they say, you know, like free range? Like how much space does a chicken actually have to get if it's called free range? Do you have an answer to that?
In Canada, there are not a lot of requirements at all. But there are some suggestions from NFAC. So they have their code of practice. They show what is the good amount of space per animal. I won't know off the top of my head in Canada the exact one, but I've worked with some certifications in the past, and some certifications they do require, or even some groups, they have specific requirements from companies that allow the hens to have more space and express their natural behavior, even when they are in the systems. So it depends a lot on the certification and on the country, those requirements.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe Canada has any of those specific certifications, that nothing that's enforceable as far as free range goes. So I think the only thing that is required is that there is an outdoor space for the chickens to get to. And from what I've heard from investigators, you've often got sheds full of thousands of birds and a small door to get out to a space that most birds are never going to have an experience of.
Exactly. Whenever we go to this, like the cage-free systems, management is very important. So we need people that know what is happening there and that they know about the birds and they know about the systems. So I've been to a few cage-free farms where there is outdoor access, then hens go out every day, they come back. So you can see it's a huge improvement from a cage. I also spoke to people that work there, and one time I spoke to this woman, she worked at battery cages before, and she said, you can't compare. She said, like, the hens were just inside those cages. It was brutal. It was horrible. And then she said she never wants to go back to those systems again. She was working there. You can see, like, if it's a good system managed, and again, I'm not saying this is cruelty free, like it's just better than cages. But you can see if it's good, well managed, the hens can spend their lives there with like in a good environment as much as possible on these systems.
So, okay, so Duda, here's the $1 million question. Many of us here, including you and I, we want to see animals free. We don't want to see animals used. We want animals to be able to live their own lives according to their own needs. But we are doing this campaign for a lot of this kind of campaign and this kind of corporate campaigns for a reason. Debbie is asking, what is your response to those who criticize these campaigns by saying they are ineffective because these improvements only make consumers feel good about doing the wrong thing?
That's a good question, and a lot of people ask about that. I haven't seen any studies showing that people feel a lot better buying these products. I know a lot of people do prefer to buy these products because they don't want to have so much cruelty involved anymore, and they know this is reducing suffering. I also know a lot of people that had no idea how the industry was, and they started learning, and they actually decided not to buy anymore, not to contribute to this industry. There was also a very recent study by Purdue University, which is one of the biggest producers in the States. And they made a study about cage-free facilities. And they said that 79% of the consumers want companies to make these commitments. They are concerned about this. They also showed, I'm just looking at my notes, but they also showed that a lot of people, when they see cages, they see this inhumane, that's cruel, that's not something they would like to be involved with. And another very interesting fact is that they say that if prices stay just like they are right now, cage-free is higher, organic is higher, and we basically just take out the caged eggs from the market, 20% of people will decide not to buy eggs at all because of the cost. So that's a study from Purdue, a producer in the States, and they say that production and consumption would reduce 20% if prices stay the same. So that's showing that we may decrease consumption with these policies. And they also announced a similar study a few years ago when California decided to start banning cages. Also, the prices increased and the production decreased. So we can see that to make these changes, if a farm has a cage barn, if they are transitioning to cage-free, they will be able to have a lot less animals. So they would need to have a lot more space to have the same amount of animals in there. So a lot of what some of these producers are doing, they're just transitioning to cage-free, but they're reducing the number of animals. So they're increasing prices to make up for it, but a lot of them are reducing the number of animals, which is going in the direction that we want.
Mm-hmm. There are, it is definitely also the way you do these campaigns. Animal justice will never be congratulating a company for going cage-free. We will be saying, okay, you went cage-free, now do more. We'll always be the ones nipping at their heels to do more. First of all, let's get rid of the most egregious, then let's get rid of the next level, let's keep going. And the other thing is, yeah, we're never going to be battling for inches. We are particularly going after the most egregious practices in the industry. And what happens when we do that is, just like the corporations only hear animals, we care about animals, the same thing happens in the media. First of all, we have seen evidence of media being much more willing to cover welfare issues because, as we all know, those in the media have a very meat-eating bias. But they still care. And so it's a little bit of a place for us to get into, to be able to have reporters cover the issues. And then what the public is just seeing is, oh my God, this is a shit show. Like, this industry is terrible. And so they're not really going, oh, okay, well, now there's no battery cages, it's all good. And there are studies that show that when there are welfare issues in the news regularly, the amount of animal products consumption keeps going down, down, down. Okay. And I don't know about you folks, but I was one of those people who spent a whole bunch more money to buy cage-free eggs. And what that did back when, before I became vegan, and it was the last step of me identifying as someone who cares about animals. And eventually that it opened me up enough to go, oh, I actually have to give up eggs altogether if I actually want to be compassionate towards animals. Who here did the whole, more expensive cage free, or, all that sort of thing before they went vegan? Yeah. So it's kind of one of those increments that's some people tend to go the path that they go on their way to veganism.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Duda, and like you talked about the fact that what these initiatives do also is it starts to cripple the industry, right? If the price of farming, if it's just not as lucrative, it starts to really affect the whole industry.
Yeah, prices, a lot of the cage-free and the organic, they're considered premium. So the farmers are putting even more costs, or not costs, but prices higher on those ones. But making these changes will affect prices, that's for sure. We're asking them to, the industry basically, what they are trying to do is having the animals as machines, and they're just trying to get as many animals as possible with less costs, right? So we're trying to increase those costs when we talk about improving animal welfare. They need more space, they need more workers taking care of the animals, because you're not just putting them in a cage and just leaving them there, even some die in a cage. So if you want them to be more productive in a cage-free environment, you need to take more care of them. So there are more workers around, that you need more feed as well. The hens are walking around, they're flying, they eat more. So it increases the cost of food, increases your cost with salaries. So it will increase the prices of products. And that's why they don't want to make changes. And that's why sometimes the supermarkets are not making any progress, because they don't want to pay more on those eggs. That's why we are trying to make this change, because it does impact the whole industry. And I've received emails from people as well saying that they cook and they buy a lot of eggs, but they saw how much free range is costing right now, and they decided not to buy. So a lot of the consumers are also like trying to see what else they can use as alternatives because of cost, because it is increasing.
Absolutely. Valentina said, but doesn't this create a false commitment? As she was talking about when we were getting the corporations to go in a certain direction. I'm thinking that companies may compromise, but only to make us all feel like we did our part, like to get us from their backs and then let them do all the harm they actually do.
Yeah, that's a concern. And that's one of the things, for example, a lot of these companies made commitments and they're not doing anything. So we are focusing a lot on accountability and making sure they are progressing on their commitments. And another thing that we do, and that we'll have to continue doing, is investigations to really show what's happening behind doors. Because also, like we were talking before, a lot of these systems, if they're not well managed, the animal may be suffering a lot as well. And they need to be well managed. We need to keep doing investigations to show what's happening, and to also raise people's awareness, because a lot of people have no idea what happens. And the industry is working really hard so that we don't know what happens. So we need to keep showing those things out there.
And one of the big pushes right now, folks, that definitely keep an ear out. It's something that us Canadian groups are really having to jump up and take care of as soon as possible, is this movement from battery cages to enriched cages. They're still cages, and they're really not much better than battery cages, but that is what the industry right now thinks they can get away with. They think by calling it enriched cages that is going to be enough of a movement. So that is why this campaign right now is so very important, to get rid of cages altogether, because we are soon going to have the industry all moving to enriched cages. And then they will say, well, we've already spent all this money. There's no way we can do anything more. So we've got to stop the enriched cages train. There can be no cages. So that's a big one that we're really focusing on at Animal Justice right now. And that's why one of the reasons why this Loblaws campaign is pretty important.
Yeah, and if you go, even we were looking at some egg cartoons the other day, and I usually don't go much to this area of the grocers because I'm not buying anything, but they have a lot of cartoons that are from battery cages, and they have grass on the cartoon. So a lot of people look at that and think, well, the animal is happy, they are going on grass, and they never see grass in their whole lives. So the industry is just trying to sound like everything is so good and the animals are taken care of, which we know is not even close to the truth.
Mm-hmm. A lot of these sort of exposure of welfare pieces also just sows the seeds of doubt in the public's mind as well. As opposed to making them feel better, it's actually these welfare campaigns actually make them feel like, oh my God, I had no idea that, we can't trust anything that's coming out of these corporations and out of this industry. Duda, Peter is asking, do you think it matters whether a company is publicly traded versus privately owned in terms of if they're susceptible to pressure?
Yeah, that's a good question. We are looking, like, we can do a lot of things with shareholders. And we are trying to look into those connections that we can advance more to see what we can do on that area. What I've seen in the past is that when a company is smaller and private owned, especially if it's family owned, they are very sensitive to campaigns, but they usually try to sue you. They don't, like in Brazil, at least, we got sued. The groups that I was working with sued by a lot of companies, and most of them were family family owned, because they think they can just sue you and they will make this go away. The big companies, the public companies, they are usually not suing because they know if they sue a animal protection group, that will just get back to them and it's gonna be worse. So there are some things we can explore more on public companies, like these connections. And also we sometimes can do a little bit more, push a little bit more, because they will be more concerned about things that they can do to fight back.
Excellent. Okay, we have one more quick question, and then folks, we're doing a quick action together. Tenebrae is asking, is changing a company's logo a copyright infringement or defamation libel? So Duda's a good one to ask, because she definitely has dealt with that in Brazil, but it's not a problem in Canada, right, Duda?
Yeah, it depends a lot of the country. In Brazil, you cannot change anything on the logo. In a lot of countries, we don't play that because they can sue you and they can win, because that's actually illegal. In Canada, generally, it's okay to do that. So I would double check before doing something, but yeah, in the US, in Canada, you can change logos and it's not an issue.
Okay, excellent. Now, folks, we are obviously the Animal Justice Academy because we love action. So we want to challenge you right now. Kirsten, want to drop it into the comments? We're going after the Retail Council of Canada this week, and the Retail Council of Canada represents all the big grocers like Loblaws, Metro, Walmart. They, as well as Loblaws, made a commitment to going cage-free by 2025 back a few years ago, and are trying to back off out of that, thinking that nobody's noticing. So we would love if everyone right now chose one of these platforms, Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn, and to just go on there and just on whatever post is most recent, just comment saying something like, why are you backing out of your cage-free commitments? something like that. Okay. What happened to compassion for the chickens? So anything that you feel is appropriate that you'd like to do. And if you want to hashtag cage-free Loblaws or no excellence in retailing, then great. Just helps us to keep track of what's going on out there. So if everybody can do that real quick, because we always say we're going to do it and then we forget about it, and it would be really allow our really give us a little punch to end here today. Debbie says, I love to let loose my cutting sarcasm and punk rock sense of humor. Yes, Debbie, love it. So if anybody wants to share what they posted into the comments, we would love to hear that. So Duda, thank you so much for this training. Thank you for giving us some of the some foundational elements of being able to do our own corporate pressure campaigns, but also thank you for explaining more about this new area that animal justice is wading into. Of course, folks, we're doing all the other things that we've always done, all of our legislative work, our enforcement work. We're still going to be doing undercover investigations, everything that we have been doing. We're doing this is just one other layer we want to add to it, because we just felt like it was really needed in Canada. So so hopefully that you can get on board and help with our campaigns the way you do with our legal campaigns, our legislative campaigns. And Duda, anything final that you want to say before we say goodbye?
No, I just want to thank everyone for comments, questions. Feel free to reach out to me. If you are part of the action team, you'll get my email, but I'll also let it here for everyone. And yeah, I think like Kimberly said, we all want a world where all animals are free and are not exploited. Unfortunately, this is not going to happen tomorrow. So I really feel like these campaigns are very important so we can reduce the suffering of these animals that are still trapped out there and suffering so much in this industry.
Absolutely. As Debbie said, it was a very good little comment here. Debbie, you're so smart. She says, I think of how it is if I were wrongly convicted, I'd rather be sleeping on a mattress in my cell than have no mattress at all. And hopefully I'll eventually have my name cleared and I'll be free. But it is, I mean, some people say, well, what's the difference between a battery cage and no cage? Well, if you had to live your life in a cage where you couldn't move versus you had to live your life where you can move and, move around and have some mobility and have some socialization, there might be a pretty big difference for you. So I think we always have to keep in mind our major goal of liberation, but we also have to keep in mind the billions of animals right here, right now that are suffering, and see how we can weigh that. And there's never any completely right answers. It's really just a matter of us continuing to feel it out. So folks, I want you to put your hands together and give a big Animal Justice Academy thank you to Duda and for all the work she's been doing. Thank you so much, Duda.
Thank you all for everything you're doing as well. I'm very impressed with the Animal Justice Academy and all animal justice followers in Canada. It's been very good to see the engagement here.
Aw. Well, thank you, folks. And just, a reminder, I always forget this, but Animal Justice Academy is completely free. The course, the events, the resources. If you'd like to help keep this initiative going, please consider giving a donation. Kirsten, put that in there. She's so fast. And folks, our next Lunchtime Live, listen up because the timing is a little off. It's actually going to be in 3 weeks instead of 2 for various reasons, including this one going on a holiday. And that is going to be June 22nd. And it's exciting one. It's one we really need you at. It's going to be a training with Camille Labchuk around the new federal ag gag bill that's being proposed, which looks like it's going to be going to committee, folks, because it's a long story, but now the Liberals are backing up this bill. So we are going to have to get very devoted again, and we are going to have to go see some MPs. So we're going to do an in-depth training around that on the 22nd, tell you exactly where everything is. And so how we're going to pull this off like we did last time. I don't know if you remember, folks, but we were able to get this bill stopped a couple of years ago. It's back, same MP bringing it back to the table. And we're going to have to come up with the same force to be able to stop it. So make sure that if you're not already signed up to animaljusticeacademy.com that you do, and you'll get first notice of our upcoming events. But we will see you in 3 weeks here on Thursday at noon. Take care, everybody. Thank you for always being here, always being willing to listen and learn. We appreciate you so much. Bye, everyone.